Hi, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Sharon, and the invitation to be here today. Um, this session will be pretty practical, I guess. We'll be writing some code, but also right now I'm going to give some background to sort of these types of creative software that I've been making the last, like, I guess almost maybe 10 years now. And some of my inspirations in creating these things that will hopefully help us think and talk about not just these specific things that I've created, but also other possibilities that could exist. Let's see. So a little bit about my work. I make a lot of things that run in the browser that are sort of creative software for other people to use. And three that are especially relevant today is HYDRA, which we're going to be talking about for most of this session. LiveLab, which is a browser-based media router for streaming audio and video and for collaborative performances. And then PixelSynth is also browser-based tool for turning images into sound. And these are all kind of open source things that anyone on the internet can play with. And these things all sort of started out as just personal explorations into things that were interesting to me. And I didn't plan to create a software or a tool or platform that lots of people would use, but just kind of putting these things online led to other people using them, and then led to them being used in different ways that I hadn't originally imagined. And then these things that to me were sort of software explanations at the beginning are now kind of communities of people. And so part of what I want to talk about right now is how, to me, kind of technical decisions now are sort of decisions about a community or community decisions. And so just a little bit of background. About like 6 years ago, I became interested in this protocol in the browser called WebRTC, which stands for real-time web streaming. And WebRTC lets you share video, audio, and data directly between clients that are connected to a website. And so what that means is that even though a server is needed to kind of establish initial connections between everyone who goes to the website, once you're at the website, everyone who was connected is able to connect to each other and share different types of media in between each other. And so that means if at that point a server went down, those people would still be able to share things with each other. And I was just kind of interested because I feel like so many of the things that exist are depending on kind of centralized corporate platforms in order to share things with each other. But the internet itself doesn't, or I guess it's not necessary that things are that way, if that makes sense. So I started experimenting with this platform, and actually, those experimentations led to this tool called LiveLab now that I'll share a link to, but you can use to do this kind of things. And one of the inspirations is the satellite arts project that was in the 70s before the internet even existed, but Kate Galloway and Sherry Rabinowitz used satellites and streamed images from one place to another, and in real time composited those images on top of one another. And they talked about how this allowed them to create a sort of live immersive space that they couldn't have imagined existing without this technology. And to them in the 70s, there wasn't a Zoom call or a Skype call at that time. And so this concept was really exciting of what happens when we create this image that isn't one place and it isn't another place, but it's sort of this live place where both of these things are occurring. And kind of my like provocation with this is to ask like, well, what are we doing now that they weren't already doing in the 70s? Like now we have all this access and all this technology, but are we doing anything actually more interesting with it in some ways? Or are we just now only using Zoom or only using like a large platform? And why is that? Which is just kind of ongoing things to maybe be asking ourselves throughout this. So anyways, their work is very inspiring to me. WebRTC as a protocol is very inspiring to me. Oh, here's the address. I guess it's a little cut off. LiveLab is just, it's similar to a video call software, but it's free and open source and makes it easier to share audio and video. And so partly these explorations with WebRTC led me to work on this project for an organization in New York called Culture Hub. And so we just did an updated release of this. And I wanted to share that. And then I also wanted to talk about, I think, one thing that happens with this is WebRTC lets everyone who's connected kind of share their video with everyone else who's connected. And if everyone who's connected kind of sees the same video, it can create this concept of a shared space. And I think we use this metaphor a lot with websites, just the idea of a website as being a place. When really a website is sort of, when I go to an address in the computer, my computer is sending a message to a server and the server is sending a message back. And it's sort of this actual flow and exchange of information. But a lot of times we use this kind of metaphor of a place to describe it. And I think that leads to certain kind of possibilities for thinking about the way that we can use the internet to collaborate, but it also kind of limits them in other ways. And so one thing I was interested in with WebRTC, and this like kind of diagram gets used a lot. And I think this diagram also applies at a level of what internet infrastructure exists, and then what web applications exist on top of that internet infrastructure. And so one of the things I was sort of interested with WebRTC and this idea that a lot of people can be sharing information with each other without necessarily having a centralized like manifestation of that or platform or any of this, is kind of creatively what sort of possibilities can that open up if we create sort of a website or something on the web where there's no central server or central kind of point that anchors it as like that means that you always kind of see the same thing when you engage with this website. I think this is maybe kind of confusing right now and a little abstract, but hopefully also once we start programming things, this will make more sense. So I'm not gonna stop for questions right now, but I will stop for questions later. But that's just to like kind of put this diagram out there and say that it represents like both internet infrastructure and applications that are created on top of internet infrastructure. And so, for example, something like using Facebook would be a very centralized web application in which, in order for me to send a message to Sharon, all that message has to go through Facebook. And so Facebook is deciding what it will look like. Anyways, and so I had this idea kind of this thing on the right, if we can be sending video and audio and data streams between lots of people who are connected without having a central server for it, what can we do with this? And in this, I was inspired by something that kind of seems really different, but analog video synthesis. And maybe just looking at these images, like you see all these patch cables, and then maybe you see this kind of routing flow of information. And so something that was interesting to me, and this is, what if I use this concept where, just to like very quick, what is going on in this picture of analog video synthesis. This is a synthesizer from the 1970s created by Daniel Sandin, called the Sandin image processor. And there's all these boxes, and each of these boxes either generates a signal or modifies the signal. And when the signal gets to the screen, that creates a certain pattern on the screen. And so the order in which you connect these boxes together influences what you're able to see on the screen. And the way that the boxes are designed is to kind of maximize the possibility of interconnection between these different modules. And I'm going to revisit this once we start coding, because it's kind of a central metaphor to something happening in HYDRA. And so one thing that was interesting to me is to use this to think about collaboration on the internet, and think about creating a sort of system in which the way that information is transmitted then influences what happens with it, which is one of the kind of central things with analog synthesis. And so this was an initial experiment that I did with this kind of concept, thinking of the browser as a modular synthesizer. And so, my video didn't work. Let's see. Oh, I think I need to log in 1 second. So this was the first experiment I did, kind of thinking of the browser as a modular synthesizer. And as it loads, I'll go back here. But basically, each window can stream a video to the other connected windows. And it's still not loading. Okay, maybe I will share this video in a little bit, but each window can stream a video to the other connected windows. And in this video, they happen to be all on the same computer, but with WebRTC and real-time streaming, this each person who's connected, or browser window that's connected, could be in a completely different place. And because I wanted to experiment with this idea, but I wasn't sure kind of what I was going for, the way that I wrote the code was a way that I could just edit it directly in the browser. And so in this image, you can see I have the browser consoles open, and I actually just edited the code directly in the browser console. And it wasn't because I necessarily wanted to create a live coding tool or something like this. I was just starting to experiment with this, and the easiest way was to write code that I could directly manipulate within the browser. And so this all led to something called HYDRA, which is in its current manifestation, it's an online platform for live coding visuals, in which each connected browser window can be used as a node of a modular and distributed video synthesizer.